So I see we have a few questions, so we'll take a look at those and see how it goes. So this one is, in the world, how does one balance life between the conventional world, the conventional reality, and ultimate reality? This heart in the conventional world aches. Body speaks loudly, yet in ultimate reality, this body is not self, feelings are not self, etc. So, of course, when we are immersed in conventional reality and we either don't understand or know or have any awareness of ultimate reality, we suffer a lot. And of course, there are lots of coping mechanisms, but it isn't until we start to recognize that there's something more than this world and we start to investigate it, that we start to recognize that there is some real relief. And of course, we have to operate in the world, but if we put Dhamma at the forefront, at the center of our life, then the way that we interact with the world changes and our suffering decreases. We also have a better understanding of how to engage and how to help. So I'd say the way to do it is not so much like sort of switching back and forth, but more and more as we come to understand the Dhamma and we develop our practice, the more we are viewing the world from the Dhamma or from the ultimate reality perspective. And then the heart aches less. The body's still going to speak loudly until it's finished its time or whatever, but that part we can only do, what, unfortunately, a lot more than people used to be able to do to take care of it. But this idea that even then, practicing with the body really soothes it or helps. Maybe the physical pain doesn't go away, but the mind can be more free than if it didn't have the Dhamma to rely on. The point about talking about ultimate reality, ultimate reality isn't any different from Dhamma. It's just to try to wrap your head around the radical change in perspective that comes with insight into the Dhamma. And of course that includes recognizing that things just aren't the way we thought they were in conventional reality, the identification with the body and our feelings and so forth. And that's really the core of our dukkha. In the morning and evening chanting, we render with offerings our rightful homage. And what are the offerings? That were traditionally you light incense and candles, and the traditional way, flowers, incense, and candles are the offerings. So we don't do that for various reasons. Allergies. In a lot of places now, there's too much concern about fire. Maybe the electric candles, but it just doesn't quite have the same feeling. So I think it's more about offering our hearts, our intention to practice, our desire to live the Dhamma in the world. Can you speak about practicing through the night, both dreaming and awake? I seem to be a little in ordinary sleep and middle of the night insomnia with restless mind. Yeah. You have to know yourself, or try things out. Last night, for example, it was very clear to me that the best thing was to be up and practicing because of the situation. And sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. But you can still practice. Practice with dreaming, I think, comes if we're in the Dhamma comes up in the way we observe our dreams. At least this is my experience. In the same way as I observe life when I'm awake. So what we're practicing with when we're awake, just like so many other things that come up in dreams, dreams are made usually from some various inputs into our experience. And when we're doing a lot of practice, maybe a lot of reflection on the three characteristics, or reflecting on any other kinds of things, then a lot of times our dreams will include that death reflection or whatever it might be. And of course, when we wake up and we remember a dream, we can also see that in light of how the mind works. And so it's when the mind is restless at night, it probably doesn't help that much to just lay there and be restless. And it's good to get up usually and do something that you really enjoy. Summer nights, I might walk on my deck outside, look at the moon, or just that you can try things out. But it's the same idea of just seeing what is the practice in whatever I'm doing, day or night, in a very supportive and enjoyable way, hopefully. Finding, what's the practice when you're eating, what's the practice when you're cooking, what's the practice when you're cleaning, what's the practice when you're talking, and when you're not sleeping, what's the practice? Especially if we can let go of the worries of, I'm not sleeping and tomorrow I have to do this and that. And if you instead turn your attention to kind of how wonderful it is to have the quiet and the space, and give the body and mind an opportunity to sink into that space, that delicious, quiet space. Okay, I'm going to do this one last. I haven't read it yet, but the preamble suggests last. Please talk about the difference between the fetters of personality view already discussed and the last fetter to drop self-view. The way it's usually described is that first fetter is personality view. It's thinking that the body and the other khandhas are self, and that you see through that. And you see through that primarily by some insight arising around the three characteristics: impermanence, dukkha, and not self. So that's on it's an extremely important step, because then the other two fetters, early fetters, also usually go along with that. The rites and rituals or social, cultural conditioning and doubt, when they all fall away together. But you still, you can see this in the suttas and in, I think we can understand it, kind of at least intellectually, that we still haven't lost this idea of an existence. Like you're still, I'm trying to think of how they say that in the suttas. It's like there's still this sense of I am, and there's still when you see the conceit I am, it's like, you know, you're not the body, but it still feels like you're something. You know, you're not your feelings or these other things, but you still feel like there's some kind of there, something's there that, you know, you're still operating from that to some degree. And there's one really lovely sutta where this monk is dying, and some elder monks send a messenger and ask him about his practice. And I think they ask him if he has, if he sees the body and the other khandas as self, and he says no. And then he writes that back, and then they write back and they say, well, then you're enlightened. And he writes back, no. And then this sending messengers back and forth is just getting to be too much, so he drags himself out of bed and he goes to see these elder monks, and he says, you know, it's like looking down into a well and seeing the water, but you don't have a bucket to draw it up. And he said that's how it feels. It's like, he says, and I can't place this feeling of being anywhere in these five khandas. It's more like the fragrance of the flower. You can't identify it to be the leaves or the different parts, you know. And then the interesting part is, as he was describing this to them, he gets enlightened, he realizes it, and it all falls away. So there is a difference, but it's one of the last things to drop. The five upper fetters are the desire to be reborn in a material realm or an immaterial realm, and restlessness, and this conceit I am, and ignorance. So there's still that there, even if we're not operating from, you know, early on we're not operating from the ego. There's that selflessness, but there's still a kind of an idea, a concept, a feeling that there's something that, and then that idea, I want to exist. I still feel like there's an existence and I want to exist again, kind of thing. So I hope that makes it clear. I think on a practical level, if we really are recognizing that there's a way out of suffering, if we've got that much of an understanding of Dhamma, then we're going to keep looking at where is the root of this suffering. And it's in that, the sense of self, the self-believing that it is this entity that owns things and is things. It's like, this body is me, it's mine. All these people in my life are somehow mine. These possessions are mine. And all of that way of relating to the world, we can start to see how much suffering that is. Because it's all impermanent and constantly changing and completely unreliable. And it's not just that we see it, it's that when the more we understand it, the more joy there is in our life. So this is one reason to look very closely at the habits we were talking about, the habit of, feeling bad about things and recalling things and all of that. That really gets in the way of this natural process of feeling more and more free and light. And even though we're still, back to that first question, we're still in the world doing all kinds of things in the world, addressing all kinds of problems, we take it less seriously at a certain important level. It's serious in that we care about living beings, we care about people, but it's like there's a different level. And with all of the other aspects of the path, our meditation practice and our development of our moral virtue, we become more stable and happier because we're not caught up in the problems that come with breaking precepts and the problems that come with that strong identification with people and the things that happen in the world. But the work isn't quite finished yet at that point. Okay, so I'm going to read this out loud and see where it takes us. Would you speak about practicing with the fourth tetrad of the Anapanasati Sutta? I observe and investigate anicca in my internal experience, or sometimes not self or dukkha. I notice fading away and dispassion, disenchantment, or when they happen on their own, or disenchantment, when they happen on their own. But I don't contemplate them in a formal way. Is there more I should do? In my experience, it doesn't have to be in a formal way. I mean, maybe what that means is, you're going through the steps and you're doing it, and seeing what happens, but that's not the most effective way, because that's more like, this is what we do when we learn. We're learning about the steps, encouraging the mind to go down that track. But when we're practicing, after we've kind of learned it and we're practicing, then it's much more like what you're describing. You see what arises. You're setting your mind in the direction, and maybe you're giving it some soft guidance about what to look at, but a lot of times the questions just arise in the mind. So whether your perception is that you're in samadhi, or you're very, very calm, whatever, and thoughts are pretty much at bay, or at least in the background, and you're just observing what's happening, and any kind of thing can be happening, lights, whatever, or nothing, space, whatever might be happening. It kind of has its own course. It just takes its course. And because we already know about impermanent suffering and not self, and we're using it I mean, I use it in daily life. You know, you use it, you can use it while you're doing anything else. And then when you're sitting to meditate, the mind might just go that way. Sometimes the mind will even go into things we haven't heard about hardly at all. Just because the Dhamma's there unfolding. So I don't think you have to do anything more. And noticing that the fading away of our interest in something, the pull of it fades away, and noticing that, you know, we get to this place where we have no passion for it, where our dukkha over it is coming to an end. That's great. Just keep going.